Here I am in Arrowtown, New Zealand, in the cemetery. Arrowtown is approximately 30 minutes outside of Queenstown by car. It is rich in history. At one time, many Europeans came here for the opportunity to strike it rich with gold on their minds. But by the mid-1850s, much of the land had been exhausted of this resource. But instead of letting it go to waste, the government encouraged the Chinese to come and to settle the land. Men came with fortune in their minds, because if they were able to raise 100 pounds, equivalent in gold, they'd be able to return back to China, buy a farm, and their family would be able to be self-sufficient. However, many of those men died. They were unable to be able to fulfill their dreams or to settle and go back home. Sadly, the Kiwis here set these Chinese as other. They had a very difficult time to assimilate, to be able to get to know the Europeans that were here. Instead, were cast off as other, oftentimes murdered, and had a very, very rich history of discrimination and hate. Newspapers were filled with cartoons demonizing these people. In fact, the government at one time said, quote, they encouraged the chimpanzees to settle the land than to let the land go to waste. These men died here in Arrowtown. And with their bodies, they lay here into the land, unable to be able to return home to their loved ones. Fortunately, there were some very, very well-to-do Chinese who collaborated with their dollars and the government to be able to exhume the bodies, to return them back home to the land, back home to their families in China. Sadly, however, 500 of those bodies that were boarded onto the ship hit a raging storm, the ship went down, and their bodies never returned back to their families. Discrimination, hate, and tyranny have no place in the 21st century. However, we continue to not remember our past because we continue to set people other as different. Let us not forget our history here today, as well as the history in our own United States that set aside the Chinese as different, as they too tried to find gold and also build some of our railroads across the Great West. Let us not forget these Chinese that were here in this cemetery. Let us continue to build communities where differentness is celebrated and honored, and where people are not cast off as other and different.